Welcome to Forensic Friday,
where we examine the intersection of true crime, psychology, and the heart of being human in the middle of it all. Well, hello again.
Part 2 today.
Part 2.
Okay.
My goodness. So you guys, Nat and I have been recording today, and I can't find our lapel mics, our bougie lapel mics. So I came with all the gear and figured out how to hook it up.
I know. It's very impressive. I'm going to give you some crap, though.
Oh, give me credit. I want credit.
I mean, you get credit for figuring it out, but your crap is... I was like, you carry like 10 different bags.
Well, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
And you switch your bag all the time.
I do. Mm-hmm.
So that's the problem.
It's 100% the problem. But I checked all of the said bags.
Okay.
I did.
I feel like, did this happen last time we recorded in my office?
In your office?
We couldn't find something?
No. I had stuff that day. I was super organized.
Okay.
I think that first of all, the ADHD is killing me at 40. So I never used to lose anything, really.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm getting a little bit whatever.
Yeah.
Well, and Nat and I have a big staffing in the morning. So we do a 3-hour staffing.
With probation,
where we talk through all of our cases and progress and all that stuff. And it's really fun. But it is a long meeting.
Can I be bougie and I'm going to order food tomorrow? And can I get myself a sandwich?
Of course. What are you going to get?
I don't know.
Are you going to get Einstein's?
Should I do Einstein's?
I'm good with whatever. You can do donuts or Einstein's.
Dunkin' has sandwiches.
I think the thing that's good about Dunkin' is the coffee is good.
Well, and I don't have to order 2 separate things. But I just feel bad ordering myself a sandwich and then no one else gets one.
Get yourself a sandwich.
It's for Gray.
It's for Gray. Yeah.
I'll hang my hat on that.
Listen, you are 38 weeks pregnant. Going to a 3-hour meeting. If you want an egg sandwich, it's on me.
I'm going to get an egg.
Get an egg sandwich.
Okay.
The other thing that's funny, as if Nat and I are not together 24/7 as it is, we text each other during the meetings. I mean, we text each other all day, but I always get a kick out of that because it's one of the ways we stay organized. So we text each other back and forth.
Yes.
So it's pretty hilarious.
Correct. Well, I mean, here's the thing. Sometimes we know things that other people don't know. And it's like, hey, we got to bring this up.
Yeah, totally.
You know?
And I should clarify, we don't use client names. We actually have, it's kind of genius. The software that we use has numbers that is not tied to anything.
Yeah. And
it makes it so much easier to communicate, but we can solve things in 5 seconds. It's wonderful.
Yeah. And then we don't look like we're unprepared.
We don't want to look like schmoes out there.
That's why we do it.
Is it schmucks or schmoes?
Schmucks.
Schmo.
I think we do that because we don't want to look not prepared.
No, and we are prepared. We just sometimes forget things that we need to say.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So I say, oh, we got to circle back.
Absolutely.
To said thing. Anyway.
Okay. So we left off last time.
End of diversion. Into the chaos.
So we already had an attempt from Dylan to get out of this whole thing. And it's not the only time he tried. He tried to get out of it a lot. One thing that it's really important to mention is he never planned to actually be there for this. He was going to kill himself in August.
Yes.
He just couldn't/didn't do it. And so when we talk about the escalation leading to the actual attack, it's important to keep in mind what's really getting worse for Dylan is his depression and suicidality. And then there's some anger that is an undercurrent with that.
Yep.
Anger at himself that he can't kill himself, anger at God that God won't make it better, angry at life that he can't have his love, you know.
Yep.
That's Dylan's thing. Eric is decompensating into just rage. If he could have burned the whole world down, he would have.
Oh, he would have.
That's really what he wanted. Mm-hmm. Couple of these things we already talked about. So on the day of the attacks, this kind of characterizes the season for them. On the day of the attacks, Eric wore a t-shirt that said natural selection. So Eric's whole thought process leading up to the shooting was natural selection.
Yeah.
Like, I'm smarter than you. I'm stronger than you. I decide when I die, which is part of it.
Yep.
And I'm going to take as many of you sons of bitches out as I can. That's like literally where he's at.
Yes. I have another thing on Eric, but
Yeah.
I am debating if I should say it now or later.
Oh, you can share it now because we're getting into the intention. I'm going to get into the journals and everything.
Well, the intention, I mean, everyone knows what happened. So, like, I'm not spoiling anything.
No.
I think the intention of him, of the thing he did, the way that he did it. So, shooting up a school,
Yes.
his school.
Yes.
He didn't want this experience to be something that people are like, oh, I'm scared to go to a movie theater.
Yeah.
Or I'm scared to go to a car show, right? I want people to be scared of their everyday lives.
Mm-hmm.
So his intention leading into this is like, I don't want this to be like, oh, like I'm just fearful to go out after midnight. No, I want you to be scared every single day. Going to a thing that you do every single day.
Yes. And on that note, mission accomplished. That was his whole goal.
1000%.
Terrorists set out to do this, and sometimes they do it, but a lot of times they don't. Eric did it.
Oh, he did it.
He absolutely did it. Now, the thing that I take a lot of pleasure in with Eric is Eric would be so upset with how this was viewed, how it went down, how it's referred to, what people think about it. He wanted this to be an extinction level event for the school.
Yes.
And it was not that. And he knew that when he died. He did know that when he died. What he didn't know when he died was this was going to get attributed to bullying and a bunch of stuff that wasn't true. Hitler, things that don't represent him fully. And he would be very frustrated by that.
Yeah.
Very, very frustrated by that.
And I enjoy knowing that.
Yeah.
I enjoy knowing that.
I enjoy knowing a lot of things about Eric that we're going to talk about that were not great.
Yeah.
He got so much clout after this. And so people worship Eric and Dylan. Eric in particular has a lot of worship online.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. He's not somebody to worship. He's not somebody who's a good person. And honestly, he wasn't that good of a psychopath. He was a once in a generation psychopath mentally.
Yeah.
But in terms of planning and fulfilling everything that he planned, it didn't go great, to be honest. And we're going to talk about that today.
No, I mean, honestly, I think other like serial killers and people who went before him, who attempted to go before him, would be ashamed.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's
Sorry.
and he's a weenie. He's smart, but he's kind of a weenie. There's issues. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, Eric, he's so dreamy. No, knock it off. Go see a therapist.
Well, here's the thing too, though. I was literally just thinking that about, what's that? Luigi?
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
Mangione.
Mangione.
And I'm sorry, like he's a very attractive human.
Yeah.
Luigi. Mm-hmm. So that and the fact that, there's some people who like borderline agree with what he did, which is not good.
No.
That's not Eric.
No.
Eric wouldn't get the attention that some of these other mass shooters, serial killers, or big name offenders are getting. He wouldn't get it.
No.
They would look at him like he's a weenie, and honestly, I think criminals would be like, dude, you failed.
Well, yeah, and I mean, he did in so many ways, but also he did instill so much fear.
100%. Well, and it was this kind of the start.
Yes.
Of this type of thing.
Yes.
School shootings, all that kind of stuff.
Yes. There were a few before this, but nothing like this. The other thing is, we have cell phones, media, 24-hour coverage of this thing. That made it different. But also, and I want to point this out about Dylan. Mm-hmm. Dylan was just an emotionally miserable, emotionally reactive human. Mm-hmm. And so when all of this happened and Eric and Dylan had this whole thing go down, there had not been a school shooting in a year. Mm-mm. The 98-99 school year, there were no shootings. Mm-mm. So one of the things that's interesting when I think about these two together, First of all, their goal was not a school shooting, so that wouldn't have mattered to them.
Right.
They wanted to do a whole new level of things.
Yeah.
Part of what would really, I think, frustrate Eric, because Dylan didn't care. Dylan was here for the suicide. That's it.
Yeah.
Dylan was here for the suicide.
And I think, so one of the things that the psychologist said later is Dylan had to literally activate a different part of himself in order to engage in this situation anyway.
Yes.
So he, like you're saying, he was like full send on suicide. And I know you're going to talk more about like what he did and didn't do and what Eric did do.
Yes.
So I'll wait on that. But what the big thing that I remember thinking was, he had to literally activate a totally different part of his brain in order to even show up that day.
Yeah, he just wanted to die. That's actually the truth. He wanted to die, and he had wanted to die for years.
Yeah, he had to activate a different type of rage in him, which showed up sometimes prior.
Well, and that's what's interesting about what he wore that day.
Yeah.
He wore a T-shirt that said wrath.
Yes.
So Eric's is this calculated natural selection, I'm God. And we've talked about how psychopaths get this kind of I'm God like whatever. Dylan only wrote about that one time, and it was really towards the end when he was getting really angry and disgruntled with God. Wrath, this emotional reactivity, hatred of himself first, and by proxy others.
Yep.
Dylan was not a man of action. He was conscripted, literally recruited by one who was. So there were a couple of decompensating behaviors that happened that are really interesting. When you look at the behavior leading up, again, there's not a solid profile, and that's what makes school shootings in particular so hard to predict. In an English paper, Eric wrote, literally, it's as easy to bring a gun to school as it is a calculator.
Yes. Brooke said that.
Eric said that in an assignment.
Oh.
He may have quoted it. Brooks may have quoted it after everything happened, but Eric wrote it in an essay.
Yeah.
And the teacher was like, geez, ouch. He got an A. Well-written paper because he's super smart. We see these school assignments sometimes telegraphing behavior. So one of the takeaways from the escalation is anything a kid puts out there, you take seriously. Anything.
Yep.
And now we have Safe to Tell, which I think has been super helpful. Ponderosa, one of the schools out here, just had a bomb scare.
I know.
This still happens quite a bit, but Safe to Tell. And he actually got a device onto the campus.
Who?
Whoever the kid was.
I know, but it was like there was nothing in it.
Well, he had some kind of device. I don't know if it would have gone off or if there was anything in it, but he had something on his person.
Yeah, well, he put it on a locker.
Yep. Oh, can I tell you the stupid shit? I'm so glad I remembered this. Okay, so I was talking to somebody with knowledge of that situation, and what these school administrators, what the school administrators did was they put all the kids in the gym.
That's the dumbest thing ever.
Put them all in the gym.
I'm going to put all these kids in an enclosed space in the school.
And we don't know. Initially, they didn't know who had the device. The information they had was there was probably a bomb. Let's put everybody in the gym. Genius.
Not great.
No, that was very upsetting. So, yeah. Come on, people.
Oh, no.
So Dylan, at one point, did not talk about murder for a year. He was starting to talk about love. Love, 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 love. So he kind of let Eric stew in this thing. And I think Dylan was just sort of like, yeah, whatever, bro. And then he started to really show engagement. However, if you really look at his journal, the things that he was writing, he just wanted to be in love or he wanted to be dead. And I think you said this in part 1. He wanted to be at peace. That's really what he wanted. Eric's writing about murder, human extinction.
It's a whole thing.
Massive events. He's drawing violent, scary things,
No, he's a whole thing.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk a little bit about the plan.
Okay.
Okay?
I don't have much on this, so I'm just here for the ride here.
People don't know this. This is probably the most interesting part to me because I didn't know a lot of this.
Yeah.
Until I really got into the book. So in all of their writings, they referred to it as Judgment Day.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be a massive bombing. It was supposed to be secondarily a shooting.
Yes.
But the bombings, that was really what they wanted to do.
They wanted to take people out with that. I wonder, I don't know if you have this information.
Yeah.
I wonder if the bombs were Dylan's idea. They were Eric.
Oh, yeah. So, but I get what you're saying. It's less up close and personal.
Yes.
I think the bombs served a couple of purposes. One was to get Dylan on board.
Okay. Yeah.
So once a bomb goes off, here we go. Right?
Well, and you don't have to do the dirty work. Because Dylan, I don't think, wanted to do the dirty work.
I don't think Dylan wanted to do the dirty work. But Eric was absolutely fixated on fire, blowing people up and having them be on fire.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he's so sick.
He's so sick, but we see that, right? That's the triad thing.
Yeah.
They planned this attack for 18 months. They were meticulous in their planning. They counted the number of kids who had come in and out of that space when they were talking about the bombs. They were building more and more impactful bombs. So they would get bigger, more shrapnel, more math on where to place them. And so in the basement tapes, they had all of this information because they wanted to be understood after they were gone. So they intentionally they left their journals, their maps, all of this stuff. Now, 99% of these things were at Eric's house. In his closet, in his bedroom, in the basement. He had the anarchist cookbook just sitting out in the basement. This is all Eric.
Okay.
There was one pipe bomb at Dylan's. That's it.
I'm not surprised.
And his journals. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I mean,
go ahead.
at the end of the day, Eric was the mastermind.
Eric planned all of it.
All of it. Dylan just showed up for the day.
Absolutely. With the sole intention, really, of dying.
Yes.
And I just think people don't really, some people know that, but most people do not know that.
No. Well, like I said in part one, I think people, including myself, before I did any deep dive, thought Dylan was like Eric. That they were both of the same makeup.
Yeah. It seems like a perfect storm.
Yeah.
Psychopath A meets psychopath B, and we're off to the races, but that is so not how this was.
Yeah.
So here was the plan in a nutshell, this bombing Judgment Day. They were going to, I'm going to say going to, because later I'm going to tell you what actually happened.
Okay.
They were going to plant a decoy bomb at a park near Eric's house 3 miles from the school. They wanted to disturb the neighborhood, make noise, and divert the police. And Eric's calculations about how many people they could kill, because remember, he wants to double or triple Timothy McVeigh's record. So Timothy McVeigh is really this was his inspiration. So everything you've heard about Hitler, his birthday, white supremacy, all this stuff. Okay. I mean, he liked German industrial rock. He liked some weird things. He actually was aiming for Timothy McVeigh's date for the massacre. So I'm going to come back to that. Okay.
Interesting.
So the boys wanted to double or triple the body count. They wanted it to be in the hundreds. Every minute they could have before they died, they could kill more people. That's what Eric was thinking. So Eric's thinking, we light up this bomb 3 miles away. All the cops go there and it saves us 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, which he's an idiot because when a bomb goes off 3 miles away, it's going to alert everybody to everything.
Right.
But anyway, that was the plan. Okay.
I mean, they're 18, barely 18.
Eric knew Dylan was wavering. Eric was uncannily perceptive.
Yes.
Some psychopaths are not as perceptive. They don't care, but they're kind of obtuse emotionally. That was not Eric. Eric was very perceptive, and he picked up on the fact that Dylan was wavering. So the bomb in the park was also a way to ease Dylan in. Nobody gets hurt, but it's game on, right? The plan is started. Okay, Act 1. This is literally what they called Act 1. This was the first part of the attack as it was planned. Massive explosion in the Commons during lunch. 2 minutes after the bell would ring, 600 kids would be around. And again, this would ease Dylan into the killing. The boys would drop 2 bombs in duffel bags and place them centrally in the Commons for maximum damage. Computer modeling later showed the bombs would have collapsed some of the second floor, specifically the library. Eric wanted to see the library fall into the flames of the Commons. That makes me question if later, because obviously the library didn't fall into the Commons in the attack for reasons I'm going to get into.
Right.
It does make me wonder if that's one of the reasons he targeted the library in the shooting. Part of it was that's the part of the school they came into.
Okay.
But I think part of it was that was part of the failure.
Yeah.
He had an idea of what that was going to look like.
Absolutely.
The second part of Act 1.
It's like interesting. Sorry.
Go ahead.
To think about, I wonder how he was feeling to like have most of his expectations just totally like squashed.
Well, I think you can see it late in the attack, which I'm going to talk about.
Yeah.
As the bombs tick down, this again was the plan, second part of Act 1.
Okay.
As the bombs tick down, the killers would exit briskly, right? So they drop the bombs, hopefully discreetly, and they would exit briskly and flare out across the parking lot at a 90-degree angle. Their cars were parked about 100 yards apart, so like a football field apart, and would serve as their mobile base camps where they would gear up for Act 2. They had drills gearing up. They would practice how long it takes to put all their stuff on, you know, load their weapons, all that stuff. They practiced over and over and over again. They had estimated how much time this would take, so they had timed it down to the minute. And then the bombs would detonate at 11:17 a.m. They would turn their semi-automatic guns on the exits and await survivors leaving. That was the big Act 1.
Wow.
And again, they estimate that would have killed 600 students had the bombs gone off.
Yep.
Okay, Act 2, firing time. Dylan had a Tech DC-9, which is a 9mm semi-automatic handgun and a shotgun. Eric had a high point 9mm carbine rifle and a shotgun. They sawed off the shotguns to conceal them. That was part of the plan because it would fit under their coat, which we'll get into the coat thing in a minute. But it was easier to conceal in the bags in the coat. Between them, they were going to have 80 portable explosives. These are pipe bombs and carbon dioxide bombs, Molotov cocktails, knives. They had some pretty gnarly knives on them too. Infantry-style web harnesses to strap their ammo and explosives to their bodies. And then they also each had a backpack and a duffel bag. And they were going to kind of put all their gear in there. And they taped flint match striker strips to their forearms for rapid-fire pipe bomb attacks. They would wear long black dusters, later called trench coats, for concealment.
Which is where they got the trench coat mafia stuff.
Exactly. So part 2 of Act 2, after they've geared up, they plan to advance on the building as soon as the bombs blew. They plan to be set back far enough to see each other around the corner and avoid the blast. They would use hand signals to communicate. They would cover the 2 sides of the building, and their firing lanes would intersect on the student entrance right next to the Commons. So anybody that was trying to flee, both guns were trained on that exit. They positioned themselves intentionally this way to cause the most damage, but also to not be in each other's firing range. So this is actually a military tactic. It's a military tactic.
There you go.
And they could literally swing their weapons at an angle and not hit each other.
Yeah.
Yep. This is when they expected to die. They actually expected to die in Act 2, probably.
Okay.
Because at some point, if they're at these points firing on students, at some point a cop or someone's going to see them and shoot them. That's what they thought. But if they got to Act 3, which I call drive-through,
Okay.
45 minutes after the initial blast, Eric and Dylan would drive their cars through the victims and the first responders. So just as they're gathering everybody up and they think the attack's over, they're going to load into their cars. They're going to drive through the victims and the first responders. Both of them had 2 more propane devices in the cars and 20 gallons of gasoline in an assortment of orange plastic jugs.
Yep.
They targeted the main exits, which would be the junior and senior parking lots, which would create the maximum body count. Their hope was 2,000 students, 150 faculty, plus unknown number of first responders and media.
Well, they epically failed.
Oh, they failed. Thank God.
Thank God.
Thank God they failed. But this was the delusional thinking of what they thought they could accomplish. And to be frank, for a couple of 17, 18-year-old kids, they had a pretty damn good plan.
Yeah.
The problem was they're 17, 18-year-old kids.
Well, and the crappy thing is like, thank goodness they did not kill that many people / injure them. However, like the sad thing is, you know, this went down in history.
It did.
Because of the impact that it did have.
And they still have literal fan clubs. People go on these mass shootings and they reference these guys all the time, which is just 17, 18-year-old kid.
That's so sad. So
many failures. I'm going to list the failures because it's fun. And because, we're not going to glamorize these dudes. So let me tell you what they fucked up for fun.
Sorry, Tina.
Sorry, Tina. Sorry, Tina. I said the thing.
I didn't say the thing.
I said the thing. Okay. So the date was the first failure. They couldn't do April 19th. Do you know why?
No, I can't remember.
They had fixated on the 19th.
Yes, I do. I did know that.
They had 700 rounds of ammunition. But Eric didn't think this was enough.
Oh.
So on the 19th, and by the way, Eric's already 18 at this point. It's like he forgot he could have bought his own ammo because all of the supplies for this they got from other people because they were too young.
Yes. And yes, he actually did order some. I'm pretty sure because he ordered some shells or something, casing. Because they called his family's home.
Oh, no, he did some of that.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about like leading up to the attack.
Yeah.
What happened was he decided he didn't have enough ammo. Well, he hit up Mark Maines, this guy who I'm not going to get into, but he gave them some of their ammunition and their guns.
Okay.
But this thing got hung up over 100 rounds of ammunition. That's it. He already had 700 rounds of ammo. But Eric said that wasn't enough. So they give up on the 14th.
Okay.
So on the 14th, they go to bowling class at 6 o'clock in the morning, hence Michael Moore's Bowling for Columbine, that whole thing.
Yep.
They went to their bowling class. They cut 4th hour for an extended lunch at Blackjack, attended all of their other classes as normal.
Okay.
Eric's bugging the crap out of Mark Maines. He's like, I need the ammo. I need the ammo. I need the ammo. He's the one who had gotten Dylan's Tech 9. He got that gun for them.
Okay.
Eric seemed eager. So Mark Maines came through. He comes over to Eric's house. He's got 2 Kmart boxes of 50 rounds apiece.
Okay.
Okay. Mark asked him if he was going to go shooting that night because he was so like amped up about this ammo. And Eric said, maybe tomorrow. So Eric and Dylan had a written schedule the day of. They had literally written it down to the minute.
Okay.
Okay. Dylan leaves his house at 5:30 a.m. day of. His parents are still in bed. He gets up, leaves at 5:30 in the morning.
Okay.
Goes to Eric's. They go to the grocery store together to get propane. They return to Eric's house at 7 a.m. Split up for a time to do separate tasks. Like, I think Dylan went and filled up the gasoline. Eric did something else. And then they reconvened back at Eric's house.
Okay.
They decided to set up the big bombs, pack the cars, practiced with their gear. And then they literally ate food and quote unquote chilled a bit longer.
Oh, gosh.
Dylan ate like potato skins. Like they're just eating and chilling.
Okay.
There's a part of me that thinks a couple of things. I think they were scared And the reason I say that is because they hung out longer than they planned. They planned to leave before 11. They didn't leave until 11. They set the timers for 11:17. They didn't leave till about 11.
Wow.
Okay. So that's why I'm like, what was going on in their heads?
Yeah.
Because they could have gone at any time. Now, they were dealing with some limitations. When could they go in and set the bombs down? And it was really, there was a tight window for that.
Yeah.
They dumped the decoy bomb at the park and set that timer for 11:14.
Okay.
Okay. Brooks Brown and Nate Dykeman, right? Nate and Brooks, we've talked about them. They were confused because the boys weren't in classes in the morning, including Eric missed a psych test. So when the boys pull up to the school, guess who they see pretty much first? Brooks. Eric sees Brooks because they parked in separate places.
Yeah.
Eric sees Brooks. Brooks charges up to him like, hey, dude, we had a psych test. What are you doing? Why weren't you there?
Right.
Eric tells Brooks, hey, I like you now. Go home.
Yeah. Which is surprising because early on, and we didn't cover this in part 1, but he was pissed at Brooks.
My gosh.
He wrote Brooks off and like just stopped being friends with him.
Honestly, for a long time, I thought, if Eric was going to target anyone, it would have been Brooks.
No, yeah.
So here's Eric with a gun
Yeah.
in his car. He could have shot Brooks right then. Brooks could have been victim number 1.
No, yeah, 100%.
Didn't happen. And Eric's waving. There were some girls that walked by. Eric waves the girls. I mean, wild.
Yep.
So Brooks leaves. Nate just happened to see Eric, thought it was weird, saw him kind of from a distance, thought it was kind of weird, but just went home. It was kind of at that lunch period, and it was an open campus, so kids left for lunch and stuff.
Yep.
At 11:14, they go into the commons. The bombs are set to explode at 11:17. Can you imagine carrying a bomb into the commons at 11:14, knowing it's supposed to blow at 11:17?
No.
Yeah, it's nuts. The written plan was for them to have been back at their cars gearing up at 11:12. They're running way behind schedule. Okay. So 11:14, they walk in. They managed to get the bombs set down and got out right before. They got back to their cars like, I don't know, a minute before.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 minutes before.
Yeah.
One of the things that helped them was the custodian was running late that morning. The custodian was really fastidious and had tapes and would literally watch the tapes during this time of the day.
Okay.
Well, he took a phone call and he missed the time between when they set the bags down and leaving.
Yep.
When the tape picked back up at 11:22, the bags were visible.
Yep.
And the people in the commons were starting to notice that something was going on outside.
Yes.
Yes. So
I watched not a documentary, interview thing. It wasn't like super. It wasn't, it was like on YouTube, but they interviewed freshmen and survivors.
yeah.
And one of the girls talks about how she sat at a table with one of the bags that was dropped and it never went off. But she talks about like, there was a bag under our table.
Oh yeah, a big bag. I mean, it was a duffel bag.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they didn't, she said at that time, she was like, people just left stuff here and there all the time. She was like, so we just like still sat at the table. We didn't think about it.
Well, it's not like now where people go, hey,
That's weird.
see something, say something, or there's an unattended bag at the airport.
Right.
It was a simpler time.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, that's so interesting. So you can imagine the boys are just gearing up and they are expecting the middle of their school to explode. And the clock ticks and ticks. The bomb goes off at the park, but it kind of fizzled. It caused a loud bang and a bit of a grass fire, but the propane didn't ignite. So that wasn't a big fireball or anything. 11:18 hits, the school is still intact. What do you think is going through their brains at this point, Nat?
Shit.
I know, right?
Like, oh no, it's not working.
Well, true to their personalities, okay? Eric's like, up next. What's next?
Yeah.
What's next? What's next, right? He will not be deterred.
No.
Okay? Dylan's rattled.
Yep.
It rattles Dylan. Eric instinctively knew that it was going to rattle Dylan. He abandoned his prime location for shooting the main entrance to go get Dylan. They were not separate after that very much. Maybe a few steps here or there, but they did the rest of it together.
Okay. Oh, yeah. That's true. That's true.
Eric moved really quickly within the first 2 minutes after realizing the bombs didn't go off. He grabbed his packs, crossed to Dylan's car, and rushes Dylan towards the building. And they climb the stairs to the west exit. That's where they were observed for the first time at 11:19. This was the highest point on campus, but they couldn't split up and had to advance together. They open their bags, get themselves all geared up. One of them yelled, "Go, go," and Eric opens fire. He shot at everybody he could see. Dylan cheered him on, but rarely fired. And they threw pipe bombs, too. One victim, this is one of the only injuries I'm going to share, but I think it's significant in terms of their psychologies.
Yeah.
One victim that had been shot lost consciousness, and when they came to, pulled on a person's pant legs that happened to be Eric
Yes.
for help. Eric was like, "Sure, I'll help you," and shot him basically at point blank range in the face.
Yep.
Dylan passed an injured kid that was playing dead.
Well, that guy, sorry, really quick, that guy who pulled on Eric's pant leg initially thought he was hit with a paintball gun.
Well, they all thought it was paintballs at first. Yeah. And some of the victims even ran towards the shooters thinking it was a prank, like a senior prank or something.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
So then Dylan passed an injured kid that was playing dead, and it either worked or Dylan pretended and kept moving. Dylan got ahead, and I think Dylan was actually uncomfortable because Eric was shooting a lot of rounds.
Yeah.
Dylan ended up ahead. He goes in, and there's an open stairway kind of in the cafeteria, and all these kids are bogged down, and they're stuck. All these kids trying to move. They're slammed up against the metal railings and all this stuff. Dylan raises his weapon, swings it in an arc, never fires. He passes the same injured kid again on his way to meet up with Eric, and again didn't fire.
Wow.
Dylan did nothing on his own. Then Dylan and Eric fired at distance targets a little bit. Dylan's shot count at 11:23 was 5. He'd shot his gun 5 times.
Wow.
If you're a gun person, this is significant.
Yeah.
3 of Dylan's shots were from the semi-automatic. 2 were from the shotgun.
Yeah.
He shot the shotgun because it's harder to hit somebody. He wasn't shooting at close range. The few times he shot at further targets, he actually used the shotgun. Eric fired 47 times, all with the semi-automatic. He didn't even pull out his shotgun.
Of course he did.
Okay. By 11:36, they're done shooting. They only shot at police and shot themselves after that. So this whole thing, basically, when they regrouped together after being outside, 11:23 to 11:36, everything happened between them.
Yep.
At 11:36, when they're done, they leave. They leave the library. They walk together. They go right up to the bombs. They even fired at the bombs, trying to get them to ignite, which you're standing there with bombs big enough to kill 600 kids.
Yep.
And you're shooting at them hoping they go off. Because remember, they thought they'd be dead by now.
Well, that and something I wanted to go back to when they were in the library, and I know we're not getting into specifics of things, but
Yeah.
this also kind of shows, I think, Dylan's discomfort a little bit.
Yeah.
Because at one point, you know, Eric was going around putting his head under the table saying like peekaboo or surprise or, you know,
Whatever.
creepy shit like that.
Yeah.
And was like taunting them. And
Yeah.
Dylan was like, oh my God, like just make a decision, like shoot them.
Yeah.
Instead of torturing them. Like I think he was genuinely uncomfortable. So going to like what you were talking about with how many rounds they each shot.
Yes.
Dylan was just like, I think the bombs were his out.
I think so too. I think Dylan, well, a couple things. One really funny thing, in my opinion. Eric, because he's an idiot in some ways, and this is classic psychopath behaviors. You plan, and then something stupid happens because you're impulsive.
Yep.
Eric's shotgun, if you've ever seen a sawed-off shotgun, they're really hard to shoot.
Yeah.
Because they kick like a mule.
Yeah, no, they're insane.
Yeah, he got hit with the butt of the gun, broke his nose.
Yes. Sorry, sucks to suck, bro.
Sucks to suck, man. So he's a wreck. He's bleeding.
He can't see.
He's in pain. He can't really see.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm just thinking, like, what a schmuck. Like, he's... So anyway, they go to check on these bombs in the cafeteria, and I think they were really hoping maybe they can get them to go off. They were so disappointed. So they go back to the library. They're looking out at the scene. They're trying not to get shot by the police who have their guns trained on the library windows. And Eric stands by the biggest carnage. Eric stands where the bodies are. Mm-hmm. Dylan takes the cleanest route to a further window. Okay. And they're kind of looking out. Then Eric walks over to the southwest corner, props himself up against a bookshelf, and killed himself. He shot himself. Dylan also shot himself, likely after Eric, but we won't know for sure. But I think because of some of the blood patterns where they fell, it looks that way. And I can just imagine, unfortunately, I think for Dylan, that was what this was all about anyway. Dylan shot himself, landed on his back with his head near Eric's knee. Okay. So they were dead before the news media starts going nuts, which was like 12:30.
No, I know.
So Patrick Ireland, we talked about that being the image that I think a lot of people are associate with Columbine. Yeah. That happened after 12:30. He was alive and breathing and the closest person to Dylan and Eric when they killed themselves. Yeah.
But remember, at this point, they still didn't know who the boys were.
No, and the other thing, and this is like so sad to me. So Eric and Dylan were throwing devices a lot in the beginning. So you're hearing all of these explosions and shots, right? So when the police and SWAT finally come into the school, again, the shooter's already dead. Right. But they're using their guns to get into the rooms. Yeah. They're having to use devices and their guns to get into some of the classrooms to search things. So these poor survivors in the school, as far as they know, this has gone on for hours. Yeah. Hours and hours. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. I remember thinking that, like, the boys had died already and everyone still feels like shots are going off and the chaos is still continuing.
So their plan was pretty much an epic failure. It had the psychological impact that I think Eric wanted.
Yeah, 100%. I think so too.
But tactically it was a failure. Yeah. Thank God, right? Yep. What are your thoughts, Nat, at this point? And did you have anything you want to add at this point?
I mean, not really. You're covering... I'm jumping in where I have thoughts.
Wonderful.
I mean, no, I don't have anything to add.
So when they're in the cafeteria, you can see and you can view this footage. Yep. Their shoulders are hanging. Eric's a mess. His face is a mess. He's in pain. The energy just kind of went out of them. And we've talked about Kohberger, allegedly. Kohberger killed these people, right? Yeah. He left and he likely saw one of the survivors. Now, we don't know if he had the tunnel vision thing. We don't know what was going on with him. However, he was also exhausted. Like, you can't maintain that kind of adrenaline and energy for very long. Mm-mm. So they were just kind of done. Yeah. They lost interest, and that was that. That also really is how psychopaths work. Yeah. They get bored. They're impulsive. And then, they're just kind of done. Like, they do the thing, and then they're like, I'm over it for a while.
Well, this ties into what the psychologist talked about. And you and I have always talked about the correlation between suicide and homicide. Yes. But when someone's homicidal, yes, they're also going to be most likely suicidal. Yes. When they're suicidal, they're not always homicidal.
I would say they're generally not.
They're not.
They're not.
But when they're homicidal, they're generally suicidal as well. So that makes sense for Eric because he's like,
yes.
Well, and he didn't say this, but he's probably thinking like, I'm going to spend my life in prison. I'm going to get the death penalty.
Yeah.
Like might as well just keep it all in my control.
Yes.
As is.
Yes.
Right. So he goes in with this intention. And I think that's why Dylan waffled so much.
Yeah.
Because he was suicidal.
Yes.
And I don't think he really wanted to hurt people.
Oh, I don't think he was homicidal. I think he was just suicidal.
Yes. But he, like I said at the beginning of this episode, he had to literally get into a different part of himself.
Yes.
To do this.
Yes.
And like turn on the anger and turn off all the other emotion.
Yes.
That he had been feeling.
And Dylan did kill people primarily in the library. One of the things I think about that I told you earlier is I think that he knew if he didn't participate in the library, Eric could probably kill him.
Yeah, well, because Eric probably would have thought he was going against him at this point.
Yes. And even though he was suicidal, even though Dylan was suicidal, neither of them went out in a blaze of glory. They could have gotten up in those windows in the library and started shooting at law enforcement. They could have come out of the school.
Well, they were trying to.
They were, but not really. So what happened is...
I mean, they shot at some ambulances.
Oh, no.
The ambulance was driving away.
They did until they came back in the library.
Oh.
Then everybody knows where they are. All the weapons were trained there. They would use their secret advantage initially, but... They actually avoided the windows after they initially got back in the cafeteria. They looked out. They didn't want to get into a shootout with police. That would have taken a lot of courage.
Yeah, it's true.
They wanted to do their own thing.
Well, yeah, I would have taken it out of their control.
Out of their control. And they didn't want to do that. So I only have a couple more things and then we're going to discuss.
Okay.
So I want to talk a little bit about one of my heroes from this case, besides Judy. Judy Brooks is one of my favorites.
And Judy, she's great.
Judy!
Well, Judy is Brooks's mom.
Brooks's mom, what did I say?
Judy Brooks.
Judy is Brooks's mom. Judy Brown. Brooks Brown. Yes. Judy Brown. Too many names.
I know.
So, from a law enforcement perspective, one of the first people on the scene, besides the security guard and some of that stuff, was FBI Supervisory Special Agent Adam Fuselier.
Yeah, we love him.
We love him. So he's a clinical psychologist. He was a terrorism expert, hostage negotiator expert. But that's not why he was there. He was there because his son Brian was at the school. And he had partnered with Jeffco Sheriff's Department before. So he showed up and really offered his help.
Yes.
And he has made this largely his mission. He put a lot of these pieces together for months and months. And one of the things that he says is that he really had to focus on everything that was happening to not worry about his son because they couldn't get a hold of his son for quite some time. His son survived. His son's just fine. But Agent Fuselier basically jumped in there and did everything that he could to help.
Yeah.
But he knew it wasn't a hostage situation pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Sheriff Stone. Jeffco Sheriff Stone.
Him.
Again, allegedly, not really allegedly, this is public record, blowhard.
Yeah.
Just an absolute blowhard. I see features of narcissism. He just really shit all over this whole thing. He really did. I mean...
Well, he's a class act of just jackwagon.
You would have to work really hard.
Yeah.
To be this insensitive.
And stupid.
Arrogant, stupid. But put descriptors in there. He made their case so challenging from the beginning.
Yeah.
So he gets up there and he's just living for the spotlight. He starts making all of these like half-cocked theories and ideas, and he went into all of the kind of the myths, and he was just team that without enough information. And Fuselier is like pretty honest
Yeah.
at various points about how frustrating that was
Yeah.
for the investigators. So 9 days after the shooting, Jeffco locks all their information down.
Right.
In a really shady way. If you want to read more about that, go for it.
Oh, yeah,
it's one of the most shady things ever.
There was a lot of things, unfortunately, that law enforcement did wrong in this whole thing.
We've learned, which is good.
Yeah.
But at what cost? And
right. I mean, the victims, like the victims' parents, I mean, how long some of those bodies sat for.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was just like, I just remember thinking when I was listening to it, I was like, my gosh, like, if my kid was one of those victims still in that school, however long later,
yes.
oh, I would be knocking doors down.
Are you kidding me? Absolutely.
You know, and I know those parents wanted to.
Oh, they did.
But they were trying to figure out, like, how do we navigate this the best that we can?
Well, and again, this was new.
Yeah.
Uvalde, those parents went in the school, which I would probably do at this point, to be honest.
Well, and then the whole thing when they said that there was one more bus and there wasn't one more bus.
Oh.
That was a whole thing.
Yeah, tell them about that.
Well, there were, I can't remember, 3 or 4 buses. We'll just say 3 buses of kids, probably more than that. There were buses of kids getting dropped off at a different location.
Elementary school, yeah.
Yeah. And parents were waiting for their kids to get there because that's where all the parents were shuffled to. Like, hey, go here.
Yep.
If your kid's okay, they'll come there.
Yeah.
And there was a bunch of parents still waiting after, all the buses came. And law enforcement said, oh, there's one more bus. And there wasn't one more bus. And so there was all these parents waiting for I want to say hours for this last bus, and it never showed up. So that was just one way. It was the snowball effect, right? That was kind of the first way that things got really messy.
So messy. And Sheriff Stone, I'm thinking he probably had something to do with that, to be honest.
One of the parents, I can't remember which one, and it's not, it's important, but, again, read the book. One of the parents found out that their son died because of a newspaper.
Yep.
They saw a picture of their son on the sidewalk.
It's horrific.
I would sue the freaking city. I don't know.
Oh, they did.
Need to sue, but I would sue them all.
They did.
Oh my gosh.
They did. But the thing about Jeffco that's so disgusting in this incident is a lot of parties colluded and worked together to basically hide all that they knew, everything that happened. Stuff started disappearing. Yeah. And they had a meeting about it. They literally had a secret meeting.
Weird.
I know. So if you want more details on that, you can look that up. But I just think that was really challenging.
Yeah.
So one thing we wanted to talk about real quick is the difference between Eric and Dylan's families in the during and in the immediate aftermath.
Yeah.
Right? So tell them about Eric's family, and then I'll tell them about Dylan's.
Well, I think you know more about Eric's family, and I know more about Dylan's in my brain.
Oh, that could be.
But I know Eric's family just shut down. They weren't answering questions. They weren't talking to media.
Yep.
They weren't doing anything.
Absolutely. They were scared when the sheriff's department showed up. Kathy didn't want them to go to the basement.
Yes.
Which is interesting, which tells me they knew. They knew a lot more than we'll ever know they knew.
Well, that, and I think Eric's dad, and we alluded to this in the first episode, but we didn't actually talk about it.
Yeah.
Eric's dad kept a running journal of Eric and all of his behaviors. I think his dad had an idea that his son was different. And one of a few things, didn't want to believe it, or didn't want to, I think he didn't want to believe that his son was capable of some pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But also wanted to excuse his behaviors as we said in the first episode.
Yeah.
He's just a boy.
Yes.
So, yeah, they weren't as engaged to help.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Dylan's family was far more cooperative. So during the attack, Dylan's dad, Tom, called 911 after he was tipped off by their friend Nate that Dylan might be involved.
Yeah.
And one of the things Nate told Tom was there were trench coats, and Tom ran to the coat closet, opened it up, and Dylan's coat was missing.
It was his coat. I think it was his dad's coat.
Could be, but it was missing.
It was gone, and he knew.
It was gone, and so he knew. So Tom called 911 and actually told them, I think my son may be involved.
Yeah. Well, and in the interview that I watched with Dylan's mom, she said, I hope that someone kills Dylan. I hope he dies in this situation.
Yes.
Because she knew. When the coat was gone, she knew that Dylan was involved.
Absolutely. Couple interesting things that happened in the aftermath. We really had, social media wasn't really a thing yet. There was MySpace.
Yeah.
Facebook hadn't dropped yet. But there was a lot of rumor and just 24/7 news.
Yeah.
And there were a ton of rumors. The trench coat mafia was a rumor. Eric and Dylan were not a part of the trench coat mafia.
Nope.
There were rumors that there was a kill list. He did technically make a kill list in a German class, but the kill list had nothing to do with the attack. He had a shit list of people that he hated. They had nothing to do with the attack.
Yep.
There was a rumor that he was targeting jocks because one of them made the comment in the library, let's get the ones with white hats. But they didn't target jocks in the attack. They really didn't. They may have said that in the library, but that wasn't a thing. Eric had, as we've talked about, a history of actually really enjoying sports. And he was actually cordial with people kind of all over the place. He knew people. He had helped with some of the tech stuff with Dylan. So, he was not on some kind of goth. No. Oh my gosh, the homosexual goth thing was a big rumor.
What was that one? That's
oh
one
my gosh.
That was of all the others.
That was in the book too. So one piece of this that I really want to talk about is the evangelical piece. Yeah. So during this time in the late 90s, early 2000s, the evangelical movement was super, super strong, and it was all spiritual warfare, and it was just interesting. And I remember, I lived in it.
Yeah. I did not.
I lived in it a lot.
Because you were in the Springs.
I was in the Springs.
At that Christian school.
At Christian school. And then
I was one of the degenerate Summit County kids.
You were a degenerate. But when you came down, though, and you had that boyfriend, you started to get into it a little bit.
Yeah, I did in high school.
Yeah, but I forget you were in 4th grade. Okay.
Yeah, I was little.
I'm literally a freshman in high school. So I'm a contemporary of some of these folks in the sense that subculture I was a part of.
Yeah.
So one of the things that's interesting when I really reflect on this is there was such a manipulation. So church was both a comfort, right? And the churches, if y'all are in Colorado, you know this. If you're not, particularly if you're in another country, this may be a little bit weird. There are huge churches everywhere in Colorado. Colorado is like...
Well, everywhere in the U.S.
Everywhere in the U.S., but Colorado has...
I wouldn't say we're the biggest anymore.
No, but on the west side in particular, there's a couple of really big churches in close proximity.
Sure.
So the kids and the families, it was one of the biggest gathering spots. So you had a lot of people going to the churches, whether they were religious or not. It was a place where they could hold everybody.
And there was some safety to it.
It felt safe.
The intention, I think, for most people, was safety and security and somewhere to go.
Well, and in the evangelical subculture at the time, win as many people to Jesus as possible so it wasn't all in vain.
Yes.
So there is absolutely this pulsing need to use a crisis to get more believers. Yeah. And the thought process isn't all negative. It's not even financial. It was, they need this. It will help them. Yeah. This happened because we don't have God, right? So, it makes sense in the belief system. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
But here's the problem with that. You have a bunch of young people, super vulnerable. This unprecedented thing has happened, and they're just devastated.
Well, and I think, yes, absolutely. And I think sometimes what the church does, especially back then, like when all this was blowing up, is it's like a period at the end of a sentence.
Yes.
So it's, you went through this, come to church.
Yes.
Become a believer, and you will not be in pain anymore.
Yes.
I think that was like the underlying message.
Yes.
that was being sent. And that's just not true.
No.
Right. Like, as someone who is a Christian, you know, just because you go through something hard doesn't mean that the pain is over just because you're a Christian.
No.
But that was, I think, the message, which gets into like more of what you're getting to.
Yes. And the churches were, I think, really discouraged when they had this big influx of people.
Yes.
And then 3, 4, 5 months out, they're gone.
But that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Because there was this underlying message of come and you'll be healed and you won't.
Yes. 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 And then you weren't.
And then you weren't.
Yes.
You were still in pain.
Then we get into the martyr.
Yes.
And I got to tell you again, late 90s. Okay. But even before this happened, but especially after this happened, there was a fixation with martyrdom.
Yes.
The year 2000 was coming. There was a lot of stuff around that. There was a lot of fear in Christian circles, and a lot of like, this is what's to come, kind of. And I remember being a teenager, like, I didn't even get started, you know, blah, blah, blah. Like, it was very stressful. But the notion that Cassie was almost an Eric. People don't know this. Cassie was almost an Eric years before.
But emotionally was more like a Dylan.
Emotionally more like a Dylan.
Yes.
But the behavior that she was espousing was more what Eric was writing in his journals.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to kill my parents. On and on and on and on. Really dark stuff. Well, she had a conversion experience.
Yep.
Became a Christian. And then, you know, there was this immediate kind of rumor that was very comforting to her family and to a lot of people that she was a martyr in the library, that they asked her, do you believe in God? She said yes, and then she was killed.
And then there's another girl, and I can't remember her name.
Vanessa something, I think.
Okay, I don't remember.
But there was another girl that actually happened to.
But she didn't die.
She didn't die. They didn't kill her.
And they say it was because she believed in Jesus. So then we have that message.
Oh, you have that message too.
So confusing.
Well, and so then Cassie Bernal, her family and Rachel Scott's family were really kind of the centerpiece, evangelical Christian voices of the victims. Isaiah Scholl, also evangelical Christian family. There was so much amazing stuff written about that family. They were comforting other people at the school, even when they knew their son was dead.
Yes.
It was baffling to the survivors and very cool. His family's just cool.
Yes.
So the thing about Rachel Scott and her brother was in the library and survived.
Yeah.
So those parents really could have lost both kids easily.
Yes. And Rachel Scott was the first one who was shot.
Rachel Scott was the first one.
Yeah.
She was the first one.
His story, if you YouTube him or like just watch any documentary on this, oh my gosh, he can't, because him and his sister were gone to a fight that morning.
Oh, well, and the other thing, and then that became part of the message too, was love your people, tell them you love them, blah, blah, blah. So Chris was actually the one, his sister, Rachel's sister, was the one who identified this whole martyr story, because he did hear it. He just didn't know where it was coming from, and unfortunately made a mistake and thought it was Cassie. But it was not. It was this Vanessa Schur.
I'm looking.
Yeah, check it out. I want to get it right. But anyway, so Cassie's family really rallied around this message, and they wrote a book, and it became this big thing. And then this other gal who this actually happened to, who survived, didn't know what to do. And ultimately it came out, and they just kept the book and kept the message, which is fine. I think the message is actually what Cassie's message. It's the message she would have wanted to be out there.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was a very, interesting part of the response to Columbine. Yeah. Now, one of the coolest, as a person of faith, one of the coolest things I heard was at the church where the Klebolds attended for some time. They were doing communion, and one of the women went through and told, I think it was the priest or a bishop, basically said, don't forget about the Klebolds. And that person contacted the Klebolds. They were there when Dylan was buried and actually ministered to that family.
Wow.
And that person had a problem with this kind of mass evangelicalism thing that was happening during all of this, because it was a little bit manipulative. Mm-hmm. Now, the manipulation was, I think, intended for good things. Like, it was well-intentioned, but it still is really inappropriate to throw that stuff around on the heels of something like this.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the church could have done it differently. I was just thinking how back then a lot of churches relied on the narrative of fear to get believers and to get people to explore their faith.
Yes.
And I think that was part of the problem. Mm-hmm. As a Christian, I don't think it's wrong for the churches to reach out and to be a support. Yes. But for the purpose of being a support.
Yes.
A place that it's actually safe, and we're not, come as you are.
Yes.
And we have no expectations of you, but come as you are.
You know who does that beautifully? Chaplains. Do you remember being around the chaplains at Densem?
No.
Oh.
I never stayed on campus.
Oh my gosh. Honestly, some of the coolest interactions I had on that campus were with chaplains. Mm-hmm. Chaplains are in the military, sports locker rooms, hospitals. Mm-hmm. They're not pushing an agenda. That's actually what's very cool about them. And they just come into a space and they're just present.
Yes.
And it's so dang beautiful. And they can be spiritual with someone who needs that.
Yes.
They can also sit and just be very peaceful. And I just think they're some of the best people on the face of the earth. So I think that a lot of people responded a lot of different ways. Some helpful, some not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Nat, what are some of the takeaways from a prevention perspective? Because that was something that
I was real passionate about.
So passionate about. And we talked about a lot when we were doing the outline.
Yes. So one of the things when it comes to prevention that I thought was actually pretty cool, this was in the interview with Dylan's mom, is so there's some schools that started teaching prevention work at a really young age. One of the schools is named the Dawson School.
Okay.
And they incorporated a mindfulness program for like kindergartners. Okay. David Slater started focusing on this in the school system. Yeah. So the goal is preventative maintenance. Back then in the 90s, the focus was like physical movement for kids and like physical health and all of that. And what was missing was this focus on mental health.
Yes.
Right. And so they were saying like, we need to not only focus on physical health for kids, because that does obviously also help mental health. But let's be real. You take like super competitive kids and you throw them on the field. They're not focused on their mental health.
No, absolutely not.
Right. So they wanted to shift the goal, not shift it, but add to the goal of how do we also help kids learn how to know what they're feeling.
Yes.
Right. And it was actually really sweet. And I was sitting there and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't love working with kids, which makes me feel like a monster sometimes. But this type of system, I was like, I could get behind this. It was literally like watching group therapy with kindergartners.
Oh, it's amazing.
And they would sit there and the teacher was like, okay, so like talk about feelings. And she'd be like, so what did, I can't even remember what she'd ask, but the kids would be like, I feel really calm right now. Or this situation made me feel really frustrated. And this is how I knew I was frustrated. So they were like literally getting in touch with their body to be able to name the emotion that they were having. Isn't that crazy?
Well, it's so good.
So good.
It's so good. And this would not have helped. I want to be very clear.
It wouldn't have helped Eric.
This would not have helped Eric. So when we think about the kids, when you think about this attack, this was a two-person attack.
Yes.
If you have these resources in schools and well-resourced teams who can intervene and help, you never have a Dylan.
Yep. Well, and that was the thing, right? This would have helped Dylan. It would not have helped Eric.
No, it might have made Eric an even more efficient. I mean, he was already terribly efficient, but
But you know what, though? At such a young age, it could have had a helpful-ish impact on Eric.
I think it would have helped identify him sooner before he could mirror.
Yeah.
So he might have said, I don't know what you're talking about the emotions. And then he would have been assessed for
Psychopathy.
maybe spectrum disorder, something.
Yes, something.
Yeah.
One of the kids, the teacher asked, how did you guys feel on your first day of school?
Oh,
I know. And one of the kids said he was scared of his first day. And then another kid said the same. And then they talked about how they would starfish breathe.
oh,
I know. The cutest freaking thing.
oh my gosh.
And this was both boys and girls.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, this wasn't just like the girls being like, I felt this way. It was actually more boys
More boys.
talking about it.
Oh, yeah.
I have a theory, and I've said this before. When men can go deeper, they go deeper than
I agree.
Women can get deeper quicker.
Yes.
But when men go deeper, they are much deeper than women.
Oh my gosh. And the emotions are so real for
Oh
them.
my gosh.
Yes.
I mean, the world knows that I have a twin brother, and he would not, I don't think he'd mind me saying this if he does, sucks to suck.
Yeah.
He is way more emotional than I am.
Oh, my brother's more emotional than me too.
And I even look at Press and I,
Yep.
and Press, he probably won't love that I say this. He has bigger emotions than I do. I express mine more.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And it's socially acceptable for you to do so.
Yes. But when he does express his,
Yeah.
they go deeper than mine.
Absolutely. No, I agree.
I think that's true for men in general.
I agree.
This is cute. They also talked about the monkey brain.
Oh, I love when kids know about the monkey brain.
No. And like when they get all these like thoughts in their head and their brain is spinning and what they do to help. Oh my gosh, it was the cutest freaking thing.
I love that.
So a lot of schools since then, and not enough in my opinion.
I know. It's still growing.
It's still growing, but a lot of schools are, like I said before, focused a lot on physical health, which again is still super important.
Yes.
But they are now trying to incorporate like the mind, body, spirit type of dynamic,
Yes.
which I think is so important.
This is a beautiful thing to give to your children. So the schools need to do it, but we as parents also need to do it.
Yeah. One of the other things that a question that I have for you, but also thoughts, and that this came up a lot in the documentary with Dylan's mom, is how much blame the parents got for not knowing.
Yeah.
And not intervening. And, you know, people were like, how could your kids be basically so effed up and you not know? So I was going to ask you, do you think as a parent, you can know if your kid is struggling this bad? There's a part of me that wonders if parents have blinders to the thought that maybe their child is capable of struggling this much. Because it might feel like they are somehow a failure.
I 100% think the parents share some culpability in this, particularly Eric's.
Yes.
And that's not a real popular opinion at times with people. But I'm going to tell you what, it's pretty hard still for kids to pull off something half this magnitude without mom and dad knowing something. Now, in the Klebold's case, they knew Dylan was struggling and they were actively trying to get him help. They needed to push him into therapy. When he said he would work on it himself, they needed to take him. This is not optional, son. You're in trouble. I think if Dylan had had the right kind of support, he would have opted out in 5 seconds. I think he would have told people the whole plan, and this would not have continued. Now, that being said, they did still find a pipe bomb at the Klebold's. Now, that pipe bomb could have showed up that morning. I don't know how long it was there. Eric had a literal arsenal in his closet.
Which is insane.
And you know what I say? I always say, my kids don't get privacy, okay? I don't think they're entitled. I'm going to get heat for this, and I don't care one bit. I love teens. I work with them in my practice. I've worked with high-risk teens. I love them. I create a very safe space for them. I'm all up in their business. I ask all the questions. I want to know who's sleeping with who. I know all their friends' names. They come in and I'm like, how's that chick this week? You know, like I ask all the questions.
Same.
I'm going to be up in your room all the time. I'm sorry. It's not your sacred space. I pay the mortgage. First of all. Second of all, I'm a good parent, so I'm going to be up in your shit. Would I look at your journal? Probably. I don't know where we got to this point.
Yep.
Where we think that kids are more entitled to privacy than they are parenting.
Yes.
And
I agree with you.
You got to parent the crap out of these kids, especially when they're struggling.
Yes.
Now, what you don't do is cut off communication, put them in their room alone, force them to do a whole bunch of stuff. You got to be smart about it.
Yep.
But can you get them in a therapist's office? Yes, please do, because they'll brainstorm with you.
Yes.
But you got to be about it. Look in the closet, look under the bed, look in the journal, all the things.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I got caught for some stuff in high school, me and my brother, because my mom was nosy as shit.
Absolutely.
And I was, it sucked at the time, but I mean, this wasn't the stuff she found.
No.
But it was just random little crap. And it was like, why did you lie to me about Abby's house? Or
yes,
whatever, like when a friend of mine threw a big party.
Oh my gosh. I lied to Tina one time, I think, really. I'm just not a liar.
Yeah.
And it was something dumb. I think I said I had danced with a boy that I hadn't danced with or something. And I think it was like wishful thinking. She looked at me, she goes, that didn't happen. And I was like, damn it, Tina. Tina was just on it and very supportive, loved me very much. Now, my mom and we had a journal that we passed back and forth. That was helpful.
Yeah.
But my mom would have read my diary. My mom would still read my diary. Let's be real.
My mom too, 1,000%.
She really would. I love her to death, but she would keep tabs on us. And you know what? I'm thankful.
Well, you have to.
But especially when they're struggling. These were not parents who didn't know anything.
No.
These were parents who were being told, and their sons were on diversion facing felony convictions.
I think Eric's parents...
They were scared of him.
They were scared of him and wanted to turn a blind eye. Because I do think, to some degree... I mean, if you have a kid like that...
Oh.
I mean, if my kid ends up like that, I'm going to be like, what did I do?
Well, yeah, or here's the other alternatives, okay? And we're going to do a nature versus nurture episode. It may have dropped before this. Yeah. Maybe not. I don't know.
If it has, go listen to it.
Yes. Eric may have had a brain injury, may have had something fundamentally different with his brain, a malformation or something. Also, he may have come by it a bit genetically.
Yeah, his dad.
Possibly. Right? And we don't know that. There's literally no data to support that. So I am not saying that. But when I look at some of Eric's behaviors and I look at some of his father's behaviors, and Kathy having her hands full, and the way they put their head in the sand, it's somewhere.
Yeah.
It may be somewhere genetically too, plus some of these other things.
Yep.
So anyway, I just wanted to say about all of that prevention work of just knowing your kid's struggling and getting them some help of some sort is critical. And I do think parents, like what happened in Michigan with those parents where the kid took the gun to the school, they knew he had a gun, they knew all kinds of stuff, and it still happened, they should be liable.
Yeah. They
should be liable. I'm sorry. And you got to keep your firearms locked up. It's stupid to not have your firearms locked up.
Oh my gosh, I cannot with that.
And I'll tell you this.
That's bad parenting.
Here's the crap we hear from people, okay, on the regular, and Nat, you will recognize these statements, right? Well, I need to have a gun in my nightstand in case somebody breaks in.
Yeah.
I need to be able to access my gun in case we're in danger.
Yeah.
I need to have a gun even though I'm on probation in case something bad happens. I got to protect my family. We hear these like really stupid arguments to either have firearms you shouldn't have or have them not secure. Mm-hmm. All of it's dumb. Follow the law, lock up your firearms. Yes. If you are not responsible enough to manage your firearms appropriately, don't have them in your home.
No.
Period, full stop.
Yes, I agree with you. Well, this is how, shoot. My church knew about a situation of a kid who shot their sibling on accident. Because they knew where dad's gun was. Yeah. And it wasn't locked up.
Absolutely.
This stuff happens all the time.
Happens all the time. Way more often than we want to think about.
Correct.
The other thing, I don't know if I ever told you about this. I was at a church one time working, and I only did this for a short period of time. Mm-hmm. But there was a man coming in, and he was on the church's radar. Okay. I now know he was schizophrenic because I know more now.
Okay.
He was furious with church leadership, had been calling. I had the good sense to go, hey, guys, I'm the receptionist. Could I not sit right by the door
Right.
While y'all are waiting for him to show up. So they put me in a cubicle, like, catty corner from the door.
Oh my God.
So my job, I was the lookout, and I'm like, y'all have never seen anybody run so fast. Usain Bolt couldn't beat me to the back of this office.
That's a big church that you and I both were involved in.
Yes, ma'am.
I should ask.
Yes. So this guy circling, and he's calling, and he's circling and calling, circling the church in his car. Mm-hmm. He finally shows up. Well, the care pastor and another guy decide, we're just going to sit down and meet with them. We all had to go in the back. He came in wearing a coat.
Oh my God.
I was panicked. I'm in a back hallway. I'm calling Garrett. Garrett and I were dating. I was like, babe, I don't know what to do. I want to leave. But I didn't know where he was. So I didn't know if it was safe to go to my car. I heard yelling. So I knew he was in the suite.
Oh, shoot.
I ran to my car. I made a run for it. They were like, you need to stay here. We're going to check you out. I'm like, screw that. This is my 3-month job. I catch you on the flip side.
Bye-bye.
I ran, got in my car, drove to Garrett's place, and that was it. And I was like, I just like my chances better. I'm not sitting in this hallway waiting for him to come through the door.
No.
Right? The reason I bring that up is to say the way that we respond has changed as a result. Mm-hmm. 2, we now respond to active shooter situations much better, unless you're in Uvalde, Texas, where they just, totally screwed that up. But you're supposed to pursue. We have armed security at schools, which makes me sad, but also reduces the likelihood of something really major.
Yeah.
I think from a prevention perspective, honestly, sometimes having security is prevention.
Yeah.
Being able to lock down a school, being able to keep people safe. People will always try. I think they'll always try stuff like this, but we've improved, don't you think?
I do. I think they actually talk about that in the book. They talk about that being preventative, like security, but it's also reactive.
Yes.
Now, right? Like we're reacting to a situation by putting these things into place, by having alarms and drills and security.
Yes.
So it's hard because some of that is it's a reaction.
Oh yeah.
To what happened.
Yes.
So I think I do think to prevent it from happening again, we have to react in that way. And how do we get to the heart of all the things, right?
Oh yeah. Younger.
The foundation. And you and I talk about this all the time. And we even have guys in our groups who are like, we wish we learned this stuff in like elementary school.
Oh, they tell us all the time.
And middle school of like how to engage with people. And to not try to control things that are out of your control and to communicate better. Like, a lot of, I think even with not as much Eric, but Dylan and some of these other tortured souls. Yes. Right. If they just had different skills at an earlier age. Yes. Felt cared for. Felt understood.
Had friends.
Yep.
Yes.
People who really reached out. And I think that's the prevention work.
I think so too.
That needs to happen. And we can have prevention stuff that's a reaction to things we've gone through.
Well, that's where we land.
Yes.
So we are an instrument of prevention.
Yes.
However, we get tagged in at the 11th hour. Yeah. So like we get tagged in at the very end. We're your oh shit, Niagara Falls rope.
You took a plea.
Yeah.
And now you are forced to see us.
And we're going to convince you not to do this again and to not get worse. Yeah. That's really where we're at, and give you the skills and tools to do that.
We are attempted prevention of reoffending.
Way more fun, I think. Not more fun, because I actually love our job, but
I do too.
More tender, sweet, effective to do prevention work in kindergarten than do the work that we do with grown-ups. Yeah. Right? Real quick, it was Valine Schnur, not Veronica Schnur. It was
close.
Valine Schnur. I knew it was V something. That is the gal in the library who actually told them that she believed in God, and she lived. She survived.
Yeah. Okay.
I wanted to get the name right.
Well, there you go.
There you go. So I think, bud, we've covered at least a little bit all the things we wanted to cover.
Yeah, we did the thing.
There's so much more to this. So I hope that if you're interested in this, there's a million resources. Dylan's mom did a TED Talk that's fantastic. Oh. It's so good. I forget what it's called, but it's so good. You can Google that.
Oh, I didn't know she did a TED Talk.
Absolutely. And we're going to be bringing you some more content around psychopathy, but also parenting difficult kids and some of that stuff. We're going to be bringing all that to you. So,
Yes. And if you're not just parenting, but, you know, back then this wasn't as big, but Janine said it earlier. See something, say something.
oh, hell yeah. I won't shut up. I'm a Judy. Judy. Judy's one of my heroes.
Yeah.
Fusilier is the first hero to me in this situation.
Yes.
But real close second is Judy.
Yeah.
Judy was screaming from the top of the mountain.
Yeah. And Sanders.
Oh, and Sanders too. Judy was screaming from the top of the mountain. Eric's built different. Please do something about him for years.
Is nuts.
Yes, for years. And Judy went toe to toe with them.
She was like, let's go, bro.
Let's go, bro. And I like Judy's chances.
I do too.
They should have just put them in a ring.
Yeah.
Just put Jody and Eric in a ring.
Eric would have pulled out some. He's not a fair fighter.
He's never fought a mom.
No, but he's not a fair fighter.
Judy.
Okay.
My money's on Judy.
Okay.
In a cage match, Judy. Judy's protecting all the children.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
All the children.
You're not wrong.
Well, thanks guys for joining us. We're going to bring you some more great content. And as always,
Bye, forensic friends.
I'm Janine.
And I'm Nat.
And as always, thanks for listening and join us next week for more crime, psychology, and heart.